Do you have a thinking spot? You know, the kind of place where when things have gotten maybe a little overwhelming or you've got a lot that you need to process and think about, where do you go? What do you do? For my wife and I, it might be the front porch. We like to sit there and kind of process and maybe discuss things in life and situations that are going on. For some of you, maybe it's taking a drive and going off into the country or taking a hike or something. Whatever it is, a lot of us have thinking spots. Well, they weren't much different back then, and today we see Simon Peter's thinking spot. Welcome to Walking Through the Word. We're in John chapter 21. Jesus has just finished appearing to the 11 disciples. Remember, there's not a 12th one at this point. Thomas was with them, and now the disciples are kind of trying to process what it is exactly that they've seen. And so we see here in chapter 21, starting in verse 1, afterwards Jesus appeared again to the disciples by the Sea of Galilee. So John's setting the stage for the next appearance of Jesus. Now we don't know how long it's been. Probably hadn't been a long time because we know that Jesus was on this earth for 40 days. But this is the next appearance. It happened this way. Simon Peter, Thomas, also known as Didymus, Nathanael from Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and two other disciples were together. This is an important part. So who are the sons of Zebedee? Well, that would be James and John, the writer of this letter. So once again, we have an eyewitness moment. I'm going out to fish, Simon Peter told them, and they said, you know what, we're going to go with you. So they went out and got into the boat, and that night they caught nothing. Now, there's two ways to look at this. The first one is that maybe nothing wasn't a bad thing. I mean, after all, they probably really just kind of went out because they didn't know what else to do. They went out to do what they did for a living, and so they just went out, didn't have much success, and they're still getting plenty of opportunity, though, to process and think about what exactly has happened. Because we don't know where Jesus went or what Jesus did after he disappeared. We just know that he left them at some point because no longer is Jesus with them here. So the disciples have been given this time to process what's been going on. And the other part of it is that I'm sure that it was very stressful for them. As after all, these are men that fish for a living. They're probably more successful at it than not. And to not catch something would have been frustrating, and it might have compounded and added to what was going on. So they're tired. They're exhausted. And it's early in the morning, so they've been doing this all night. Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples didn't realize it was Jesus. Now, this could have happened for a number of reasons. It was because they're tired. Remember, they didn't have street lights, so it's not like Jesus was standing under a street light. They're like, oh, hey, look, it's Jesus. There's a number of reasons why they wouldn't have recognized him, but Jesus called out, hey, friends, have you caught any fish? No, they answered. Been a long day. Been a long night. We haven't done anything. And then Jesus says the most ludicrous thing that probably was to their ears. Throw your net on the right side of the boat and you'll find some. Okay. Boats aren't very wide, okay? We're talking about a matter of feet, maybe 4, maybe 5 feet from, and maybe 6 feet. I don't know how wide these boats were, but they weren't wide enough to make a difference. They have all these empty nets, and Jesus said, you know what? You just need to throw it to the other side. Throw it to the right side. Well, the disciples, I'm not really sure what they were thinking, but they obviously felt compelled to obey. And so they did. And when they did, they were unable to haul the net in because of the large number of fish. The nets were about to break. Other accountings talk about how they had to call in the other boat to drag it in and bring it together. Then the disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, wait, it's him. It's the Lord. And as soon as Simon Peter heard him say, it's the Lord, he wrapped his outer garment around him, for he'd taken it off because they'd been hot and working hard getting this net up, and jumped into the water. Simon Peter is going to be a main player in the next few verses, and this is going to be very important. So let's take a minute to examine where Simon Peter likely has been at this point. He was present when Jesus appeared both times. He went to the tomb and saw Jesus wasn't there himself. Peter also can't help but forget, or try to forget, that he denied Jesus 3 times. And at some point, he's going to have to deal with this. While Simon Peter's always been an emotional guy and was certainly caught up and swept up in the emotion of Jesus appearing, you can't help but think that this is weighing on the back of his mind. And so I imagine when Peter got to the shore, it was a mixture of amazement, excitement, and probably a little bit of embarrassment. Maybe not sure what to think or what to feel or even what to say. We all have these encounters with God. Fortunately, like we're going to see, God knows exactly what to talk to us about whenever we have these moments. But we'll get to that next time.